Alright, what's going on everyone out there on YouTube? NES Ruler. Welcome to a brand new review, and this time around I'll be checking out a film that was sent to me review by MVD, and you can pick this up on 4K at all your favorite online retailers. It is a film from the year 1981, directed by the horror master Wes Craven. It is titled Swamp Thing. So what can you say about Swamp Thing besides the fact that this movie ultimately stinks? Yes, this movie stinks. It's always stunk, and unfortunately, it still stinks. This is actually the first time, though, that I've watched the international unrated cut of this film. And really, to be honest, there's really not that much difference besides a boatload more of TNA throughout the movie. But this edition does have the international unrated cut as well as the PG cut in 4K, if you guys are wondering. So, Swamp Thing. What do I think of Swamp Thing? Well, ultimately, I think this movie kind of starts off pretty strong, but ultimately it flops into the water like a dead fish and goes nowhere. And it is super boring by the time that the second act begins. Nothing really happens, and nothing really interesting happens, especially in the second act. As we enter the third act, some things start to pick up again a little bit, but the second act of this movie just really drags, and nothing really happens. So if you guys don't know the story about Swamp Thing, we basically are following these group of scientists in this swamp in Florida, and we are introduced to our main character, who is a government agent who goes there to observe the experiments that are happening. Ultimately, it is the scientific lab is overrun by hoodlums, played by David Hess, as they attempt to steal the formula to this experiment that these group of scientists are trying to achieve. Ultimately, the main scientist gets lit on fire with this green liquid that they are developing, and ultimately he turns into the Swamp Thing, and the rest of the film is him getting his revenge on these hoodlums who ultimately turned him into this monster and stole his formula. And that's basically the story. Very basic movie, very basic story, your typical, creature revenge movie, if you want to say. This movie has some really weird transitions throughout the entire thing, and I mean some weird transitions, and it happens a lot in the movie. You'll have like the screen turning black and then does like the clockwork effect, or it fades into black in weird points in the movie and then reappears as time passes. Really jarring, and I really never noticed that until I watched it this time, but it really is quite a jarring experience with the way that Wes Craven used transitions in this movie. And he didn't just do it once, he does it throughout the entire film. And it hurts the experience a little bit, in my opinion. I feel like he probably could have edited it in a different way that wasn't so jarring as an audience member watching this movie, because it just feels cheap when you watch it and all of a sudden this weird transition comes up and appears. The 4K looks pretty good. It actually looks pretty decent. There's some spots in it that looks really soft, but ultimately the transfer is really strong as a brand new 2023 restoration by MVD. Looks really good. Like I said, at some points the image does go soft, but ultimately it's a very vibrant, bright film, obviously, because it takes place in the swamp. A lot of greens. It really pops off of the screen at some point, so the transfer is pretty good. It's not amazing, but it is actually pretty good and better than the old Blu-ray that came out quite a little while ago at this point. Sounds pretty decent. No complaints there. So with the package, you have this really cool slipcase that is reminiscent of the old CED days. Really like the sign that MVD went with these new 4K releases that they are putting out. Sorry, focus. Doesn't want to focus. Focus. There you go. So, really just cool releases. This is number 1 of their label, their new 4K label, and then the back of the case. And then ultimately here you have the disc. And they once again keep the retro theme with the old looking, who had art like this? 20th Century Fox retro artwork. Really cool. I really like the art that they're going with these. And on the other side we have the Blu-ray, which in my opinion isn't as cool as the 4K. And then you get the poster, small poster of the new CED cover art with the top. Very cool. Very retro, reminiscent of CEDs, which is, in my opinion, a cool design choice. So ultimately, Wes Craven's Swamp Thing is not a good movie, unfortunately. I know a lot of people say that this is probably one of Wes Craven's worst movies. I probably agree. He has made some stinkers, but early on in his career, this is probably one of his worst films that he's made. It's obviously a bigger budget film, and he obviously had more money than he probably usually had at this time in his career. But ultimately, Swamp Thing just didn't do much for me, even on this second or third watch of it. Still just didn't do much. But it is a nice package from MVD. They did a really great job, the new transfer. I'm very curious to see how this line of 4Ks progresses as time goes on. After this, we have Ghoulies coming out, so I'm very curious to see how that goes. Feature-wise, nothing new. Everything that's ported over from the Blu-ray that came out from Scream Factory quite a while ago now. So if you guys have that release, a lot of the same features on here. A lot of commentary tracks and a lot of, Adrienne Barbeau has an interview on here. And then you have an interview with the writer of Swamp Thing and a few other featurettes on here that are ported over. So nothing new feature-wise, but at least they ported over most of the features here from the old Blu-ray. So that is my review of Swamp Thing. If you guys like this review, please give it a thumbs up. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/NESRoto22. Follow me on Letterboxd, letterboxd.com/NESRoto22. Hope everybody's doing well, and I shall talk to you guys soon. See you guys.